Hello everyone and welcome back to another Babbling Irons video with myself and Mike today. We thought it was, definitely worth creating a video on this, on George Earthy. Obviously scored that goal against Luton at the weekend. Massive moment for him after what happened before with the head injury. And he was kind of robbed of that moment of coming on and, making an impact. So it was good that A, David Moyes gave it to him, and B, that he actually, showed his quality in that kind of 20-minute cameo that he made. And obviously getting the goal was just the icing on the cake for him, really. And this is a player that isn't news to us. Like, we've been pretty much on this. I remember in the thread last year, you actually added Lanzini as the replacement option, as George Earthy, as an option to remove Lanzini and bring George Earthy through, and give him kind of that pre-season to stake a claim. And yeah, he's just continued to impress in his kind of youth career so far. And now he's been given that chance right at the end of the season, which is probably actually quite nice timing with obviously Lopetegui pending. And he was in the stands yesterday as well to see that. So yeah, George Earthy, just overall feelings right now for Earthy, Mike.
Yeah, man, I'm absolutely made up for him. Let's face it, anyone who's watched us knows we're huge advocates for youth players coming through at West Ham. We're probably, me and Sloth, just on that tail end of when West Ham brought through that golden generation. And I'm not kidding. I genuinely feel we have a bit of a golden generation again with the players that are coming through. And it feels a bit like that time when we did bring through the likes of, in a very short space of time, Rio Ferdinand, Frank Lampard, Jermaine Defoe, Joe Cole.
Carrick.
Oh no, I'm missing one here. I know I'm Glenn Johnson, for instance. That's 5 players we brought through who went on to be mainstays for England and playing in the top 4 teams in England, or at the time, top 3 teams really, challenging for honours, etc. And I do feel that this under-18 crop, there is probably about 3 or 4 just from this one team that could come through, given the right platform, could do that. And George Earthy is probably the one. He's probably the most ready, shall we say, out of that crop. And I'm talking about the under-18 crop because there's also Potts, who's done incredibly well at Wickham as well. And I do think from the under-18 setup last year, George Earthy is, for a lack of a better term, is the one to kind of, I think, to really come through.
I mean, yeah, he's still only 19 years old, which is crazy. And I think a lot of when a youth player plays, you can kind of tell whether they've got it or they haven't. Sometimes they need a few games, but if there is that kind of standout player, you can tell that they're ready. And George Earthy just came in that Luton game. He did this. He made the same similar start. I can't remember who he got his head injury against when he came on.
It's against Fulham.
Yeah, against Fulham. Like, his 2 or 3 minutes that he played, he was actually playing really well. Linking play, looked comfortable on the ball, was looking to move. And again, yesterday he was just finding space really, really well, moving the ball when he needed to. And what I liked is the instinct in front of goal to kind of run across his man and get that little flick on within 50 seconds of coming on. Now that's
67 seconds. It was clocked out. Him being on the pitch and the ball being in the back of the net from him.
The type of player he is as well. Obviously, you'd expect him to come on, have a few nice touches, make a few things, but I don't think anyone really expected him to go on and have that kind of. It's almost like a striker's instinct to run across the box and just tap it in. So, yeah,
absolutely. It's, as you say, it's very predatory. That is pure and utter instinct and knowing of where to be. And I would say the last midfielder we produced who had that is someone that is predominantly quite well disliked, but it's Frank Lampard. Frank Lampard was the last midfielder we had, who was also called limited, who was able to have that knack of when to arrive into a position. Something we've lamented as well for years as West Ham fans, and something we've lamented on here is we don't have players who have the instinct to run across the front of the goal. George Earthy did. First, I think one of the defenders comes close to him, he pushes him away, and then he kind of drops hold, and then he notices when he sees Kudus go to the byline, he anticipates, he's only going to cut it back to probably around here. So he just makes that movement, gets in front of, I think it was Mengi, and taps it away. But again, that is like a striker's instinct. It's purely predatory and just knowing and sniffing out a chance. And that is, to have that from midfield is so vital in football.
I mean, we've seen it, haven't we? I mean, a lot of, say, Lucas Paqueta's criticism from being a midfielder has been that lack of output in front of goal. That's his play in the middle third and final third when he's creating is outstanding. But when it comes to that kind of killer instinct in front of goal, making things happen there, that's where people maybe say, okay, that's not the type of player he is. But he doesn't have that in his game. George Earthy has already shown that he's someone that wants to get in the box, wants to score goals, and wants to, make an impact, not just on the ball, but when he's off the ball, he's making those movements and, reaping the rewards of the goal. And I think he said in his post match, as soon as Kudus got the ball, his alert was, okay, I know he's amazing at dribbling. He's going to beat that player. I'm going to get into a position at the right time because I know he will do it, and it's having that understanding with someone he hasn't really played with.
And exactly. It's that, but it's also the fact that he's done that because he has pure confidence in his own teammate to make something happen.
Yeah.
I think that's something we haven't always seen in players necessarily going, he's going to beat that player. I need to get in that position. We have people that haven't gambled, and he gambled. He took a calculated gamble of he's going to beat him. If he beats him, I need to be in a position where I can maybe get a cutback, because his only option really is going to be a cutback. And he took that chance, and it paid off. It's like you say, that ability to have that trust in his own teammate is brilliant. And what I found really interesting is watch how much Paqueta looked for George Earthy. When he had the ball, he wanted little interchange. Obviously, they had that little bit where they took the mick, where the pair of them just tapping it between each other.
Yeah.
But again, when there's other opportunities, Paqueta looked at Earthy, and Paqueta, in fairness, doesn't pass as often to certain players as he does others, because there is at times a level of trust that one, they're going to control it, or they can actually take that part, or he'll get the pass back or he'll retain. Yeah. So I think what we saw with a good few of the players is they trusted Earthy to give him the ball. And we've seen also an Instagram post before when, with Earthy, I think when he made his debut in the Europa League, and there was pictures of, him celebrating his appearance, players putting down, giving congratulations. Paqueta calling him an absolute baller.
Yeah.
Player you've got right behind you in that shirt, Lanzini. For me, he reminds me of what Lanzini would do for us. He just picks up in those pockets. You can play him pretty much anywhere in midfield, and he will be great for you because he has such intelligence to move. He doesn't stand still, and that's why I think in that last part as well, we were really, really kind of. I guess kinetic is probably a good way of putting it. When he came on, because of his movement, others were moving as well. And that movement in general from him is so intelligent because he just drops into spaces, doesn't stand still, always looking to kind of create an angle. And that's what you need. And this is why I hate and I despise this nonsensical, ill-educated, and it is because it's making an assumption based on nothing and based on zero knowledge. When they say these young players are not ready, you don't know these players are not ready until they play.
Yeah.
If you're saying they're not ready and you are not part of the coaching staff, you are not part of West Ham in any shape or form, or you have even not watched any youth team football, your appraisal is uneducated. And that sounds horrible and harsh, but it's true because you haven't educated yourself about the player. You're not informed. You're making an assumption based on the fact that a manager hasn't picked them. That's not taking into account any kind of, preferences from a manager to only play, experienced players. Doesn't take into account maybe that manager hasn't necessarily gone to youth football. Also, if you haven't necessarily listened to conversations from our youth team, or even when you watch youth team, listening to because generally our youth coaches are part of that commentary team who are talking about the player and talking about the player. And a lot of our youth players have been consistently praised and talked up as to they should be, that they need a chance to be in the team.
If you've got Lucas Paqueta in your comments saying you're an absolute baller, then you're doing something right. I mean, you wouldn't have that. So I think with George Earthy, what impressed me whenever this Luton match was, when this goes out, was he didn't try and do too much. He wasn't trying to, look like this crazy thing that came on. He was just doing the simple things really, really well. Mm-hmm. He was finding the pockets of space, like you say, linking up with Paqueta. He was taking it on himself to kind of drift across the line. He wasn't just like sticking to his position, which was really nice to see as well. He's kind of got the instinct to find those gaps, which again is a massive, massive green flag. And also, as we already mentioned, the goal kind of speaks for itself. So with George Earthy, I think he probably is the one I would pick as the, like you said at the start, the most ready for this current team. And I think he's got a massive preseason now with Lopetegui coming in, and it'll be interesting to see how Lopetegui does integrate a few of these young players into the preseason squad. Even the likes of Mubama, who hasn't really played. Obviously, Freddie Potts coming back from Wickham early for to continue his stuff for the last few weeks heading into preseason. So there's definitely the talent there, like you say, that there's talent in that academy. It's just whether they're going to be able to be integrated or ready for the Premier League, which we'll find out by playing them, or whether they just need a loan to, say, the Championship or whatever. Like, you look at someone like Harry Kane as an example of someone that was completely shone out, completely disregarded by a lot of the coaching team. And it just takes that one manager to say and put that trust in him.
His loan spells were never that great.
He
didn't do a great deal. You wouldn't, based on those loan deals, you would have never said Harry Kane would have been the player that Harry Kane has developed into. But you say it took one manager, it took Pochettino. Sorry, was it Sherwood actually gave him the chance?
Yeah, it was Sherwood. Yeah,
Sherwood in I think it was in the Cup games, wasn't it? In Europe, I think when I was in Europa League.
Yeah,
and then obviously Pochettino took him to a completely different level. But again, it's someone about youth players. You never know how good they are until they're given a platform, and sometimes it takes a certain type of manager to come in and to really push them. And with Earthy, I think that the really important thing you said was how he kept it simple. Sometimes people think, "Oh, it was simple," and that just means that's not necessarily that great. But someone made a comparison, and this is a very, very high claim and comparison. But we're saying George Earthy, is arguably England's answer to, say, a Bernardo Silva or a David Silva. What that's essentially saying is they were players that people would play things very simply. However, they were devastated because of their movement, because of their intelligence. They're able to play these simple passes. And then they would make, this incisive and sometimes genius passes. Let's be honest, they were incredible. They are incredible in terms of Bernardo Silva still playing, and were incredible with David Silva because he's no longer playing. But that kind of comparison is really to talk about that intelligence. And let's face it, that's been seen over the last 2 years at youth level. Last season, he scored 10 goals and scored, I think it was about 12 assists, give or take. And this season, he got 13 goals at youth level, 10 assists at youth level, and he's played 23 minutes of Premier League football and already has a goal to his name. The kid will score. I could arguably get us 5 goals next year. He is a player that I think next year, regardless of what preseason, I think he stays. I think he'll get a chance in preseason, but I think the decision's already been made. He is one that will not go out on loan. I think.
I do hope that he gets that. I do hope he gets that chance because he deserves it now. He's staked that claim now. Again, we're not taking things for granted because, as you mentioned, that the stats he's been producing at youth level and the performances he's been producing, he's the standout. He's been one of the standout players for the youth team for the last couple of years. So he 100% deserves it. And you can just tell, as I was saying into the group chat yesterday, sometimes you can just tell if a player is that person to come through. And it does feel like George Earthy is that person. So yeah, well, I guess we'll see what happens with that one, and whether Lopetegui takes a favour to him as well. But yeah, I'd be very surprised if he doesn't, to be honest. But yeah, massive congrats to George Earthy. Fantastic moment for him. Obviously been at the club since 5 or 6 years old. Him and Casey as well, as we can see here. So they've come a long way. A lot of hard work's gone into that moment that he had against Luton at the weekend. So yeah, just a start hopefully for him in a West Ham shirt. As a West Ham fan, that's what we love to see. And hopefully he'll come through into the first team next season with more goals and performances. So yeah, leave a comment. Let us know what you thought about the George Earthy cameo and whether you think he'll be good enough to start for West Ham next season or be in the squad in the Premier League next season under Lopetegui. Yeah, make sure to leave a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you are new. And Mike, until next time.
Come on, you Lions.